Or let's take a look here at some additional display troubleshooting issues. One of those would be flashing or flickering displays. Now, I'd have to say that 9 times out of 10, that's going to be a cable and or connection issue. And that's just because, you know, I'm not very good at drawing plugs, but anyway, there's a cable plugged into this plug, or supposed to be, and it's just kind of hanging off there part way, and it's just going to flag. This is what we call flagging, where it could apply to networking or anything, where something works, it doesn't. It works, it doesn't. Or the display is on, it's off. It's on, it's off. Okay, so that's the kind of flashing or flickering that you might get when it's just kind of in there, but not really quite all the way, and so forth, okay? You might also run into this with an incompatible resolution and or refresh rate. So let's take a look at that. If I go into our settings here, and then I'm just going to go into display, and I'll just pick one of these displays right here. And as I scroll down, we can see the resolution right here, right above my head. So right there, and it's the 1920 by 1080 is the recommended one that we have right now. But what could happen is if I change it to a different resolution that's not recommended, then we could start to run into some issues. Now, it's probably, went too far. It's probably not going to be an issue in this particular case if I chose a different resolution. Some of the aspect ratios might be different, so it might be a little bit more squishy or, you know, elongated or whatever like that. But if you really force it and you go into advanced display here, then this is where you can start to get flickering issues. Okay, so right now it's at about 60 hertz. Remember, a hertz is the number of times something happens per second. So it's going to be about 60 times per second where it's going to be refreshing the screen. Oh, I'm in the way. So it's at 60 hertz per second that it's currently refreshing. This is where it draws a line one at a time. Sometimes they're sequentially from top to bottom. Sometimes they're interlaced, so every other one, and then it'll go back and do the other ones that it missed when it does it second pass. But I could choose a different refresh rate than this monitor's really able to accept, and mine's right at 59.94. Why Windows did that instead of 60, I don't really know, but there you go. But anyway, if I choose a refresh rate that's not suitable for it, that could be an issue. Usually, if it's too slow, then you can start to detect flickering. So I've never seen it, but some friends of mine can actually visually see when a monitor is refreshing too slow, and it gives them kind of a headache and everything like this. Apparently, my eyes are just not good enough to pick that up. If I went into the display adapter properties again, I'd just go into a different UI here, basically, but it's going to show me all the modes here, and again, it's at 59 or 60 hertz. And the resolution should be okay for any one of those things. It's 32-bit color, which is also known as true color. So we should get a full gamut of color there, at least it's visible to the human eye. Now, another thing I will say about this as I close that up is that it used to be in older versions of Windows. I'm on Windows 11 here. In previous versions, you used to be able to go into Control Panel and choose different resolutions or refresh rates that were not supported by the monitor. Now that's very difficult to do. You kind of have to use workarounds or third-party products to be able to do that. Windows does not really give you that facility anymore. But if you're working with an older version, someone may have chosen one of those really weird, odd resolutions or refresh rates that's giving you a problem. We don't really talk about CRTs a lot because it's not really part of A+, but just in case you do run into those, there's electromagnetic interference that can also cause flashing or flickering. So if you're in an industrial environment or something like that, and you've got a CRT monitor too close to magnetic equipment, for example, or radio frequency interference, then that could cause a problem. You can also degauss those. They are magnetic sensitive. So usually in the menu system of a CRT, you can choose to degauss it, and you'll actually, sometimes it even makes a weird sound, just exactly like that. And it makes a weird sound, and it looks weird on the screen for a few seconds. And degaussing relates to the magnetism there. Anyway, how about the incorrect color display? So again, we talked about that earlier, but there could be pins bent back, especially in VGA or DVI. Since I've already discussed it, I'll move on. There may be the display adapter, might have software adjustments that can be made. And again, it depends on the manufacturer. But you can color shift using that software a lot of times. And it could be that someone before you has kind of gone in there and played around and just fiddled around with stuff and kind of gotten it all askew. So you might need to go back in there. Usually there's also a reset. So you can reset it back to like a default value or something. Also, you can consider restarting in safe mode to eliminate software or settings or even the manufacturer's drivers from being part of the issue there. And to demonstrate that, I'm just going to go to this Windows 11 computer here. And if I go into settings, right now it's in normal boot up mode. So it's using whatever drivers it's using for the video and all that stuff, just kind of normal, okay? But if I wanted to go into safe mode, which we'll talk more about again in our next course, then I could go into system and then down here to recovery right here. And then within recovery, I could choose advanced startup. Notice this one right here, advanced startup. Then I'll click on restart now. Now, once I've done that, and this is a virtual machine, that's why I'm able to restart and continue recording. Once it does that, it'll give me additional options on the restart, and then I could choose safe mode. So basically, when safe mode comes up, it's not using the manufacturer's printer drivers. It's using generic Windows drivers, which are broadly safe. So if you still don't get an image or something's wonky after you boot into safe mode, then it's probably not Windows, probably not the drivers. It's probably a physical issue with the actual card itself or a connection or something like that. Okay. Anyway, here we go into these options now. Once I've chosen that option from within Windows, then when it reboots, it comes into all of this. I could just continue to a normal boot, turn off the PC, boot to a device. I don't know if you can see that because it's kind of small and I can't zoom in right now. But I can boot to a USB device, a DVD, a network, something like that, or troubleshoot, which is our current option. I'm going to go to advanced options. And then, again, I'm not going to elaborate on all of these things right now because we're really mostly looking at safe mode. But I could go to startup settings right there and then restart. And that would allow me to boot into safe mode. It'll give you additional options once it does that. So now I see a number of different options. So I can use number keys or function keys. And I can choose number 4, for example, enable safe mode. You can also choose number 3, enable low resolution video, to take it down a step even further beneath what even safe mode on its own would do. But I'm going to be okay with safe mode, so I'm going to choose number 4 there. And that'll just boot me into safe mode. Now, once we get into that, we'll see we don't get wallpaper. Remember, when I first looked at this, we had wallpaper. Well, now we won't. It's trying to eliminate all graphical elements that could potentially interfere with anything here. So I'm just going to log on here, and when we get to the desktop, you'll even see that it says safe mode in the corners there, like right up here at the top, where my mouse pointer is right there, over here, and then down in the lower left and right as well, it'll say safe mode. Notice that this does not even fill up the screen anymore. Why? Because it is now in a very low resolution compared to what it's capable of. So if I go into display settings and then go down here to display resolution, you'll see that we're at 1024 by 768. So that's what this safe mode is supporting. And again, it's not using the manufacturer's drivers or anything like that. It's just using generic drivers to be able to get us this. So to repeat it, if you can't see anything here, or if you get a bad image somehow in this, it's not related to the operating system or the drivers from the manufacturer directly. Probably more physical issue. Okay, so it could also be that the monitor controls are just out of adjustment. So again, people have a tendency to fiddle with stuff. Usually there's some kind of monitor controls along the side, somewhere, maybe on the bottom or on the top, anywhere. It could be anywhere around the edge of the whole monitor. And someone might have just fiddled with it. They said, oh, I wonder what it would be like if I changed it to super green or something like that. You can change the RGB colors. You can change the brightness. You can change the contrast, all kinds of stuff like that. But again, most monitors will have some kind of reset to default option that's available. And that would be the best place to start in bringing things back to a normal situation. You can also use calibration. So there's going to be a device that you can use for that. I was going to show this to you, but it hasn't arrived yet. Let me show it to you. I just ordered this. This is a calibration tool. I used to have another one. I still have it, really, but I just hate it. It uses a mini USB connection. It always comes unplugged when I'm trying to calibrate it. The software is kind of wonky and everything. So I ordered this one. It just hasn't arrived yet. But what you'll do with this, I'll show you, is you can put this on the screen. Let me see if it'll show right here. Okay. So you put this on the actual monitor like this. And I mentioned this before, but it'll connect to a USB port. You can see it's plugged into the USB port probably of that laptop there, for example. And it'll go through various colors, tones, brightnesses, gamma. We call it gamma as well for brightness. We go through all of those things, and it will use that to calibrate what it's showing on the screen and see if how it compares to what the software thinks that it's sending out. And if there's a mismatch there, it'll create a custom profile to bring those colors into alignment. You can also kind of do a self-calibration, which I have no faith in whatsoever. Let me show you that. That's if you go to a command prompt, and let me bring it over here. I just realized I might have to be administrator for this. DCCW is what it is. DCCW.exe. Oh, and it brings it up on the wrong screen, so let me bring that over. And there it is. I guess I don't have to be an administrator. Anyway, what we do with this is I get out of the way, is down at the bottom in the lower right, it says next. It also gives you a little bit of information right here. But you just eyeball it. There's not really an official, reliable, and objective method for doing this. Basically, you're going to eyeball this and kind of just say what you think is the proper colors. So, in my view, this is not really that useful on a professional level, for sure. If you're a professional graphic artist, photographer, videographer, that kind of thing. But if you just want something that looks pleasing, maybe someone got this whole thing way out of skew before you inherited this whole computer and monitor and everything like that, and you say, wow, I got to get this thing back into alignment. You can do that possibly with this to make it at least tolerable. And you can click next. You can specify what good gamma is, and you can see a definition there of gamma. It's the mathematical relationship between the red, green, and blue color values. Oops, that's supposed to be a rectangle. Okay, red, green, and blue color values. And in combination, they emit the amount of light that is emitted from those values. Okay, and you can see the problem I have with this is that they're saying you want it to look like this in the middle. Well, if the monitor's already all messed up and the settings are all messed up, this will not look like what Windows thinks it's sending to me. So that's my whole problem with this whole method that they use. But at least it's better than nothing, I guess. And if you don't want to pay for a calibrator. So then you would go in here and you'd say, well, I think this looks better or this looks better. I don't know if it's adjusting brightness. I don't think it is. I can see it, but because of recording software and the way all that works, you might not be able to see it. But as I was moving this up and down, it got darker and lighter. You can also go to contrast and adjustment. So here again, it would say you want it to look roughly like this middle image right here, where you can see some skin tones, some shadows, dark and light tones. You can see a white page here, all that sort of thing. So if it's too bright, then the blacks are actually a little bit more grayish. If it's too dark, then you see no detail in any of the dark tones. So this actually looks pretty good according to my eyeballs anyway. And then again, for contrast, you can specify what, good contrast, low contrast, whatever. This should be kind of the baseline. But again, if my monitor is currently all messed up, then it's not going to be showing me the good contrast in the appropriate way. So it's kind of the blind leading the blind in a certain sense there. Anyway, I'm just going to click on next through this. Also, your neutral grays. So your neutral gray should be a true neutral gray. If it's been color biased in some way, then it might look a little bit bluish or a little bit reddish or something like that. You can see some examples down there of how that might look. Anyway, I'm going to cancel that because there's no need to proceed much further. But again, it's very subjective. It's just kind of attempting to eyeball it to make it at least tolerable again. Okay, if you get a dim image, just check the monitor controls. Very often, that's just somebody fiddled with the monitor and they just turn the brightness setting down too low. This is more likely to happen on a laptop because your desktop computers, it's always in a static environment. You don't usually move it. The laptops are in a bright setting. You're using it at the beach, and the monitors had to jack its brightness all the way up. Most monitors for displays on laptops will have an auto setting, so there's a little bit of a sensor there that can detect how bright the ambient light is, ambient meaning what's around the monitor, what's around you. And if it's a bright setting, it needs to jack up that brightness so that it can compensate for overwhelming light that's around you, like sunshine. Whereas if you're in a dark room or a dimly lit cafe or something like that, then it's going to bring the brightness down so that the brightness of the monitor does not overwhelm you. Okay, so that's usually automatic. I have found that with the MacBook Pro, it's supposed to be automatic. It very often is not. It just does not seem to get it, so I have to manually do that. And when you do it manually with the controls, especially on laptops, there's usually something along the function row or something like that, or you might have to hold down a function key and press something, but it varies from manufacturer to manufacturer. On the MacBook Pro, it's very simple. You can see it right on the keys, and you just press up or down the brightness. Okay, and again, there might be a function key involved in that. If the image is truly dim with something like an LCD, the LCD backlight might be bad. That may or may not be a field replaceable unit. You'll have to check with the manufacturer to see if you can replace that LCD. backlight. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from CBT Nuggets. Also, if you're new to IT or are interested in an IT career, visit cbtnuggets.com and sign up for a free trial.